My name's Charlie Fitch. My role in boxing is a a professional referee. I turned pro in 2001. Um, I started doing amateur boxing as a referee in what year was that? 1997 or 96. I forget offhand. Yeah.
And
Yep.
then talking about the big fight, the Froch Groves 2, just talk me through how your week went and what you were thinking throughout fight week, when you've spoken to either any of the fighters or anyone around. As you said, you're a big boxing junkie. Did you sort of take in the occasion as much as it was?
Um, what I did was like for me the week of the fight and the actually like the 2 weeks prior to the fight was just getting all my medicals in on time so that I could be the referee. Like I had to have like a blood test done and you know what else did I have to have? Yeah, it was just getting the blood test done, the hepatitis testing done, um, all that stuff done. And like luckily my doctor's office was very helpful, with pushing the paperwork through very quickly. And I'd already had like the Hep series from work, so that helped because the British Boxing Board of Control is, they're very strict, which is a good thing. They're very strict on, on getting people, making sure all their medicals are right and such like that. So it was like a lot of medicals getting it on such a short notice, getting it ready. But thankfully, I was able to. So my mind was really just on that. And ironically, at the time, um, it was like my job was very stressful at that time, and it was like the boxing assignment was a relief. It was like a relief, and um, as far as I really wasn't at that time. I didn't read anything in the press. A friend of mine had said, Charlie, don't there's like he goes, don't stay off the press. Just you know what you got to do in the ring. Just focus on that. So I wasn't aware of the week or two of the fight of anything going on in the press as far as whether I would be the referee or not. I didn't know about any of that until afterwards, to be honest. I think it was George Groves's um, one of his new managers had protested against having me as the ref, and the IBF said nope, we're not changing because they'd already changed who the referee was several times, but I wasn't even aware of that last protest by Groves manager because I it was in the press, but I no one told me about it, so I didn't know about it until later on. Yeah,
And
yeah.
then talk me through fight night. How was sort of the atmosphere throughout all of it? How was it did walking in there and sort of dealing with that 80,000 crowd and being that third man in the ring?
It was cool. It was cool. Well, yeah, one of the for sure most special nights of my life. Like when I die, hopefully that's not for a long time from now. But I'm sure like in my obituary, it will mention that I was a pro referee, and it will mention that fight. That fight will be what I'm honestly most remembered for. I probably refereeing that fight, and it was a really special night. It was yeah, it was really electric. Um, yeah, the crowd was. I kind of, I, the crowd was very passionate, rooting for either Carl or George. But I really felt like the crowd, more than anything else, they just wanted it to be a good fight, free of controversy, with a clear winner.
Mm.
And thanks to that knockout punch by Carl Froch, they got it. It was delivered by him. Carl Froch did that. He gave that to everyone. Um, and yeah, it was a unique night. I know there's been I think 90,000 since then. Anthony Joshua when he fought there, but the 80,000 was the first, as far as I know. My understanding was that was the first fight of that large since like pre-World War II. You know, so it kind of like really broke new ground. And so it was cool to be a part of that. And just the crowd, the fans, they were great. The boxing fans in England, I was like a bit jealous how passionate they were for for boxing, and just how huge boxing is in the United Kingdom and England right now is really cool. So I'm like, oh man, I would enjoy. I mean, you guys got like I think like 2 magazines. Like I get one of them delivered here. In fact, I just got it. I just got it today. I haven't opened it yet, and it's like always a thrill. And and like I think you guys got like 2 active magazines there,
Yeah.
where it's still the physical one, which I really love. It used to be here. I got bookshelf full of magazines. That was used to be one of my favorite activities was getting my Ring magazine, KO, World Boxing, all these old magazines, and yeah, you I you gotta tell me to shut up sometimes because I'll just keep going
No,
on and on talking about boxing.
more the merrier. I'm happy to talk as much about boxing in general. Any tangent you want to go on off or anything like that, please do. I'm here
You
for.
don't mind?
I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here for it. I love it. But
Okay.
slightly back on onto that fight. Did you have any fears going into the fight after the first one finished quite controversially, maybe arguably an early stoppage, depending on who you speak to, and or if you spoke to Groves at
Yeah.
that point, you definitely would have argued that. Did you have any fears or even thoughts in the back of your mind when you were brought up to officiate?
No, not really. I mean, my thoughts. I mean, I guess let me restate that. Every fight that I do, I've got some fears. To be honest, I had some every fight, whatever. If it's a 4 round fight, 2 guys making their debut, honestly, I give it the absolute best that I got, and I got some fear, some anxiety, some angst about it. And so I think because I treat every fight that way, when I have a world championship fight or a big fight, a pay-per-view fight, it's kind of I'm doing the same thing, and I've kind of by the time I had done that fight, I'd already had it pretty well established in my mind over the years of, from what I learned from my mentor Wayne Kelly, referee, was once you get in between the ropes, all that matters is just a fight. It's 2 fighters fighting one another, and everything else that's going on outside of the ring is basically just background. Now, at Wembley Stadium, that was like a super cool background. That I mean, it was a background. I don't know that I'll ever experience a background like that again. I mean, because it wasn't only it was the fans, and it was just the atmosphere that the fighters created that was very genuine amongst themselves. For whatever reason, that happens sometimes. There's just a real genuine animosity between them, and people picked up on that, and so that kind of made that a very special fight. So I kind of got off track. What was I going to answering your question? So for that night, so like, did I any fears? Yes and no. So I did have some fears for that, and probably more than normal because of how big it was. But and it, I mean, but I honestly do every fight. So so yes, I did.
No,
I guess that's the answer.
no, I'm glad to hear that sort of that's the way that you take sort of every fight with because even people don't really realize as a referee that you will have some fears in there throughout. You're being put in a big stage, whether it's someone's debut or even whether it's as big as Froch Groves too. I think there's a lot more pressure on referees because if they have a perfect officiating 12 rounds in a championship fight, no one cares. But if something little goes wrong or there's a slightly controversial take in any sort of way, you're the first ones to get the slack and the first ones to get hit with it. So I think it's a at times quite a thankless job.
Yep, yep. Everything you said is true. Um, but I think all of us that that do it. We got such a deep passion for boxing that we accept that, and it's like it's okay. It's like everybody's. My view is everybody's got the right to their opinion. And sometimes if it's a negative opinion, of course I don't like that, but that's okay. It's like I what's kind of helps me with deal with negativity when it comes, and I've been very fortunate so far to have not had too much. Is my feel is, hey, that's their business. It's not any of my business what other people think. Because it's totally out of my control. All I can control as a referee is how I prepare in the job that I do, and just do the best that I can, and let the chips fall where they may. Yeah, that helps. That kind of helps take a lot of stress off it, and also what kind of helps remove stress is just if you prepare. When you prepare, I think this is true for anything in life. When you prepare for it, there's really nothing to get nervous about, because you know what you're going to do. When you know what you're doing, when you know what you got to do, you just do it. And there still is some stress, but it makes it a lot easier. The times I'm nervous is when I'm not prepared. When like when I used to when I boxed in the amateurs, there's sometimes I didn't train as good as I did other times, and I was nervous on those times. you know, yeah, yep.
And then you spoke about your preparations. What sort of preparations goes into a night like that for you? What does your weeks leading up, or apart from obviously the medicals, what other sort of preparations have you got going on?
Well, you got to me. I divide it up in a couple of categories. You got physical preparation, mental preparation, spiritual preparation, and emotional preparation. And now this has taken me years to reach this point. I'm giving you like my goal. It took me years to learn this from other people, and some I've developed in my own mind, but I'm sure I'm not breaking new ground. Even though I feel like I have on some things, but I'm sure other referees have similar mindset in their in their own words. But so like the four categories, the obvious one is physical. Be in shape. Get your running in, your road work in, so that you can, so that you're able to referee that fight in round 12 the same way as you are in round 1. And and like the way I look at it is like if you go and like go running and then you play a game of chess afterwards, if you're not going to play that game of chess as well if you're out of shape. Your mind gets affected too. Like you want to be physically in shape. So, and I see this sometimes, referees that are not in shape and they make not as good decisions later in fights. And I've experienced that myself at times where I've not been as in good a shape. I'm like, I would have made a better shape decision had I been in better shape. So I think that's one way to prepare is physically. You always want physical shape. No excuse to not be in physical shape. And then this number 2 preparation is the mental side of it, which is knowing the rules. And no excuse to not know the rules. So I go over the rules. I got my notes that I go over. I do that. So just kind of getting the mind in that boxing mindset. And then 3, the spiritual and emotional, there's some similarities there. So for me, it's like you just kind of, I call it spiritual, but it's just kind of like, to me, it's just like following my core values, what's important to me in life. Because I find if I living my life the way that I believe is right outside of the ring, I feel like that helps impact how I referee in the ring. And if I'm going against those values outside of the ring, I kind of feel like then my mind is not right in the ring, and it impacts how I referee in the ring negatively. And then the 4th one, the emotional, I find like when I'm at like the week of the fight at work, I kind of like very distant from my family, friends, work, and to kind of distance myself from those any issues like that, and just start like sharpening a pencil, is just focusing on the boxing side of things. And like something you said was like you watch a lot of boxing and you know get totally engulfed in that, and like that's something I advise other new referees, you know, who want to get into boxing. You know, I say, you know, get into the amateurs, but the other thing to do is just, and to me, engulf yourself in boxing, so that those concepts about boxing are in the front of your mind. Watch as much boxing as you can. It's like I'll watch a lot of boxing, and I find that that helps me. Just kind of start, you know, thinking about that boxing way of how things are. But I also find like in between box, sometimes I have to take a little breaks from boxing too. For me, some people don't, but I sometimes I gotta like diversify myself a little bit so that my wife doesn't leave me, you know, and watch some sporting events with her. She likes football and baseball. And so I find that helps me a little bit too, to kind of diversify it a little bit. But then like when I got a show coming up, it's just like I'm just watching boxing more and more. So that's probably a lot longer answer than you wanted to hear, but that's it.
I love to hear it. Your passion is just makes me smile every time I hear you speak about it, because I think it's very rare to be in the sport so long and still have the same passion, or anywhere near the same passion that you had when you started, or in general, or even anywhere near the passion that sort of some people that just starting out now have.
Yeah, thank you. I that makes me feel good to hear that. And yeah, and like that passion, I think like for me, it's the fighters is where I get it from. You know, it's like every time I get in the ring with those fighters, to me, those are like it takes they're special people. I mean, people who don't box, there's a lot very special people who don't box also, but like I love boxing, so that's I connect more with the people that box that are special, as special. And but to me, they really are. They're really unique. And so when I see them get in the ring, and you know, and like start, you know, like the 4 round fights, you know, they're not getting paid too much money, you know, for the amount of work that they're putting in and the sacrifice and danger they're putting themselves in. I have a great deal of respect for those guys doing that, you know. And then like as you watch the fighters move up the ladder, 4 rounders, 6 rounders, 8, 10, 12, you know, the world championship fighters, it's like really, really amazing, you know, that these guys, one, that just the skill level they got, but then like also like the discipline, you know, like some of these guys at the world championship level, they're like multimillionaires, you know, but they're still making these sacrifices that so few human beings are willing to make, you know, and like sacrifices, not just, I mean, sacrifices in regards to, you know, physical sacrifices, time wise, social sacrifices. They're, you know, they're missing out on events with other people, emotional. I mean, just it's just such a wide gamut of sacrifices they make to be the best that they can be in that boxing ring. And yeah, so it just blows me away when I get in the ring with those guys.
Yeah, and you say that respect comes on to sort of my next question. How is it as a referee sort of balancing fighter safety and giving every chance to a fighter to have them fight their fight? We mentioned early stoppages. No one likes to see an early stoppage, but at the same time, no one not a single person in the world wants to see a fighter go on too long and get hurt and seriously damaged. How's the sort of balancing act when the fight's in your hands?
It really is, it really is a balancing act. And you know, you like to me, like in amateur boxing, it's about the number one priority in amateur boxing is fighter safety. You know that, and you know, and it's like you want these generally kids to, you know, become better human beings. You know that very so few amateur fighters are going to go on to be pro fighters, and even fewer are going to go on to be successful pro fighters where they make some money. But pro boxing, you've got another aspect of it in my mind, which is the entertainment aspect of it. That people are paying to watch them, and this is how they're earning a living. So it's really, you're balancing their safety. You want them to return to their community, their loved ones, the same, fighter, that person, human being, man or woman they were when they went in the ring. Understanding that they're going to have superficial injuries, they're going to have cuts, bruises, maybe broken bones, but like, I guess like, so like where the balance comes into me is like to limit those long-term injuries, that, you want them to still be able to walk and talk, okay, 10, 15 years down the line. And so, you don't want, to me, it's like, as referee, I don't want to see them take sustained beatings, where they're out of the fight. They're just in there. They're just fighting. They're just fighting to go the distance and take a beating. And in boxing, that used to be very accepted. And it still is somewhat accepted, but the culture is starting to change. And partly, I think we actually can kind of thank MMA for that, changing the culture, where in MMA, it's perfectly acceptable for a fighter to tap out. And in boxing, historically, that has historically been very unacceptable for fighters to say, I quit. This guy's got the best of me. I'm not going to keep going. I don't think I can win. So that a lot of times fighters, and this was described so well in the book. I got to think, that was such a great book. The Knockout, I haven't quite finished it all yet, but like Teddy Atlas was saying, there's kind of like a silent admission by fighters sometimes of like, I'm not going to beat this guy, and they kind of like accept defeat, and some end up getting knocked out, but I think sometimes fighters, they'll go the distance, still they don't get knocked out, but they go the distance knowing, but realizing I'm not going to win, but I'm at least going to go the distance. But they end up just taking a beating during that time. And so I think the sport is changing, and some people don't like that, and I can understand that. The older fans don't like it because we're used to each standard had allowed more punishment to take place for the fighters, and now in each generation there's a little bit less punishment that takes place. But I think referees are the trainings I go to, the referees are encouraged to, when you see this fighter is taking a beating, he has no chance of winning, he's behind clearly on the cards, he's not showing the ability to score a knockout, and he's just surviving, stop the fight. Whereas I think in decades past, those fights were allowed to continue, and that was okay for that time period. But I think that's changing today. Yeah. So I don't know if I answered your question. How do I balance that? I don't know. You just try to, you just make your best decision. To be honest, I pray to God every fight, for lack of a better word. I'll say God, and because I don't go to church. But I believe there's something way powerful out there, and for me that's God. It's Jesus, and I never feel closer to God than I do, like probably like those final 10, 15 minutes before I get in the ring. I feel very close. It's like a spiritual moment, and I'm praying, hey, help me do my job. Help me do my job, Lord. Help me do what's right. Help me protect these fighters, and let them be glorified. Let them be the best fighter that they can be. And whoever wins, may that fighter win. Whoever the best fighter is on this fight, let them win, whoever that is. Just help me do my job. And that's kind of melodramatic. I mean, maybe it sounds dramatic, but that's the truth of what I do each fight. And that's the 4-rounders and the 12. This is probably a little more intense for those 12-rounders, and those fights like Froch Groves, was very intense. It was like surreal. It's like surreal, really, like how it is. And like, in fact, it's like the fights that are that big, a fight that big, it's like you can't be nervous. It's like it's beyond a nervousness. Like I can remember moments. It's funny. I can remember moments from Froch Groves before I got in the ring. I was sitting ringside and I was sitting next to a young, um, up and coming fighter at the time, Olympian. I think his name was Luke Campbell.
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember, I think I was sitting like either right next to him or two seats down, and he had like a really pretty girl sitting next to him, and I can still remember seeing this really beautiful girl, woman sitting next to him, and I had on not my Walkman, but what's it called, my earphones in my ears. And so I was kind of listening to music, which I don't do anymore because some people rubs the wrong way. They're like, referee shouldn't do that, but for me, it's kind of like helps block things out. It's kind of like helps me get in the zone, kind of like fighters sometimes do. They listen to music, get in the zone. So I like listening to music, but some supervisors, commissions don't like that, so I stopped doing that. But for that fight, I still did it, and I did it before that fight. I was listening to music through my earpieces, sitting ringside, and I can remember watching. I think Anthony Joshua fought on that card as an up and coming guy, and it was real bright, real. It was a sunny day, and the crowd wasn't all there yet. Yeah, yeah. I forgot the question now. I had to.
Genuinely, yeah, I love it. We wouldn't have even got anywhere near that story of you sitting two seats away from Luke Campbell, just sort of
Yeah.
soaking in the atmosphere and soaking in the occasion, and that's just brilliant. I love hearing something like that. And I'm also looking forward to reading the book, The Knockout with that or by Andy Clark. I'm hoping to pre-order it either tonight or tomorrow when I get paid. Because I mean I'm really excited. I'm going to interview I think Andy tomorrow as well. So I'm hoping
Okay.
to sort of yeah speak to him about the
Yeah.
book, about everything. It sounds really good.
Yeah, you're gonna love it. And I forgot that like he sent me just a private copy to let me read it. And I forgot that it's not yet out there. And I of course I have not shared that with anyone what he sent me. But yeah, it's a brilliant book. It really is a brilliant book. And yeah, yeah. I mean he really gets boxing, and he was such a genuine nice, and you got the same demeanor, genuine, nice, honest guy that I felt very comfortable talking to him. And so I spoke very freely to him about boxing. Plus, I just love talking boxing.
I'm
Yeah,
hoping
that's a great book. You're gonna love it.
I'm hoping there's more people like you in that book and that just are open and happy to speak about boxing because it's great to see. It's weird because I've worked in different or um over my 3 years or 3 and a bit years at university. I've worked through different sports and done little things here and there, and don't think anything hits the same anywhere near the same as boxing from the amateur level to world championships or world championship referees, anything like that. They think it's just brilliant. It's so I don't know. It just feels so accessible and enjoyable to speak about rather than when you get into. I'll use like soccer or football as an
Yeah,
example, and I think some people are just quite arrogant and
yeah,
um quite weird about it
yep,
and quite uncomfortable. But even from the lower levels of the amateurs or semi-professionals, I think is even at that level compared to I've spoken to a few world champions of Wayne McCulloch and Barry Michaels, um, and they were just so open and happy to speak to me. Whereas if you try and get anywhere near a Premier League footballer in here, they'll just shove you off with whatever else, which is
yep,
just I don't know. The sport's just it's literally grasped me, and I've not let go since probably September. I'll probably my girlfriend probably gets absolutely sick of it because there's always every Saturday night I've got something on in the background, in whether we're watching something or I'll have something on either in the corner of my phone or on the TV in the background whilst we're doing something, and it will always be oh there's boxing on. I think there was a thing a couple of weeks ago that I think it was the Anthony Joshua fight. We were meant to go out for the evening, and I forgot that it was on. and then we ended up having to switch our plans a little bit just to focus it. So she's probably sick of it at this point, but I just can't get enough of it.
Yep. That makes total sense to me. Everything that you were saying makes total sense to me. Yeah, I asked my wife to marry me the night that Tommy Morrison fought Lennox Lewis and got knocked out by him. And I didn't have HBO, here in the U.S. HBO at that time to watch that fight. So I went to the cheapest motel room we could afford. It was like, it was bad, really bad hotel room, and a motel something. And while we were watching that fight, that's when I asked my wife to marry me, watching that fight, and she's like, "Well, I think the writing was on the wall for me, what I was getting into." So she couldn't be surprised, but yeah. So yeah, I understand what you're saying. You mentioned Barry Michael. I remember he was someone I remember as a kid rooting for out of Australia because he was really unique fighter. That he upset Lester Ellis to win that world championship, and he was like much at that time period, it was much older fighter. It was a huge upset, and Lester Ellis was really like a hot, super expected to be possible future superstar. He was real big star in Australia at the time, and didn't turn out to be the big star he was thought to be, but was going to be. But he was still a great fighter. Was champion, IBF champion, and Michael upset him. And it's real old. I remember I've never seen that fight, but I remember reading about it in Ring Magazine. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Barry Michael.
Yeah,
he yep.
Really well about it. I remember doing, because he still lives in Australia. I think I did the interview at something like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, my time, and just speaking to him, it just sort of like woke you up and sort of you sit up and think, yeah, wow, this is really like special about, speaking to someone that's been through similar to this interview. To be honest, I think there was a couple of hours ago that I was a little bit tired and a little bit like getting through the day, and then as soon as you came in with the energy, and it's brilliant. I love to hear it because it got me bounced up and got me talking about the sport I absolutely love.
This is great. And are you going to do boxing journalism
I
when
think,
you finish school?
yeah, my aim is to get any job attempted within boxing. Ideally, yeah, some sort of boxing journalism, whether that's video, audio, written, anything. Anything I can get my hands on, I'm 100% in for it.
You'll find your way. It'll work, and I absolutely it'll work. And like the guys that I've seen that are successful in boxing, doing media, they all have the passion you got for it. That's what everybody has in common. They love boxing. That seems to be like the key ingredient. If someone loves boxing and is willing to put in the work, and they all work their ass off, and which I can see you do too, because it's real early there right now, right? Like,
it's about half 11 p.m.
oh, it's late. Oh, it's 11. Okay,
Not
okay,
not too late for me at the moment. With
yep.
See, there's different fights on different times, so I'm usually up at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning trying to catch a few, and then maybe get up a little bit later in the daytime for it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, hey, I look forward to you interviewing me down the road. When you're doing
Oh,
doing that
100%.
thing. You
I'm
reach out to
100%
them.
hope to be anywhere near you, and anywhere near the rings that you referee in, and it will be brilliant to see you at some point down the line, hopefully.
Yep.
And then just one final question for me:
Yeah, you bet.
one piece of advice or a piece of advice that you would give to someone that wants to be in your position?
As a referee, I would say, watch boxing, start in the amateurs, um, throw yourself into it. And I think you got to really care. To me, to be good, to really good, you got to really. What I see, all the best referees, there are a lot of great ones out there. That what they have in common is they just have a deep passion for the sport. Like like Howard Foster. I talked to him. What a nice guy Howard Foster is. I really like him. One of the first fights I first fight I ever did overseas was a Steve Cunningham fight in Germany, and Howard Foster was also worked on that card, and Steve Smoger did. And I remember I had some drinks with Howard Foster and another English referee, big guy, really nice guy. What the heck was his name? Baldish head, but he was a really nice guy. I'm embarrassed I can't remember his name, but they were just such nice guys. Howard Foster and the other English referee, who's retired now, and yeah, that's I would just advise anyone, just spend time on it, watch it as much as you can, and throw yourself into amateurs, do the amateurs as much as you can, amateurs, and then just work at it, and just work at it, I think.